Hey, Al McCoy here, and you are listening to the Solar Panel, the Phoenix Suns Show.
And we do appreciate you watching the Suns Solar Panel podcast here on YouTube. No Greg Esposito today, but that's okay. You do have Mr. Dave King, the man.
You just get more of me and Tim. How exciting is it?
Bright Side of the Sun, and myself, Tim Tompkins. So I thought this was a little bit interesting, and I actually kind of made fun of the tweet when I saw it because it had the line in it, sources.
Sauces.
Whenever anyone just says sources say, I think, all right, you just talk to somebody that knows something about the Suns. Like if it's an unnamed source, I just don't really believe it anymore. Regardless, there might be some validity to it, so we're going to talk about it. There was a report that came out that if the Suns do decide that they want to fire Igor Kokoskov over the summer, that Luke Walton is seen as the most popular replacement for replacing Igor. Now, on Bright Side of the Sun, they did release a poll, and I'm actually really happy with the results on the poll. And it was, which coach would you prefer for the Suns, Igor or Luke Walton? And 85% of Bright Side listeners voted for Igor, and it wasn't a small sample size either. When I checked the poll, that was out of 540 respondents.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Igor has shown what. Here's the things. Igor is a rookie coach in the NBA. He's got some tendencies. He's got some tendencies that he's going to stick with lineups longer than basketball Twitter would want him to. He's going to sub in a guy he planned before the game to sub in, and not the guy he didn't plan before the game to sub in, instead of the one everyone wants him to sub in. I personally wish he would play more DeAnthony Melton and less Jamal Crawford, but I totally understand why he does those kind of things. Here's the things that he's done well, though, this year. You've noticed guys getting better. You've noticed DeAndre Ayton getting better. You've noticed Mikal Bridges getting better. Kelly Oubre was already, realized before he got here, but he's even getting more involved as time goes on. And Devin Booker is getting better. They purposely put too much load on Devin Booker early in the season because they didn't have a point guard. Now they've alleviated that a little bit, and he's gotten Devin Booker is definitely better now than he was at any point this season. Is he better than he was last year? We don't know, but that wasn't Igor's thing. Igor is trying to get guys better during the year. So I think there's been a lot of progress, and you got to give Igor credit for that. Is he best as a lead assistant? We don't know yet because he hasn't had enough time to coach in the NBA. Most rookie coaches are not great as rookie coaches.
It is, I think I side on the side of you with wanting to see a bit more DeAnthony Melton and a bit less of Jamal Crawford. I think it is a little bit perplexing that at this stage of the season, I'll give the answer I give everybody on Twitter and in the comment sections of Brightside as well. The answer, what'd you say? He wants to win.
Well, yeah, I mean, Igor wants to win games. That's one of it. And you're more likely to win games with one of the highest scoring guards in league history that's ever come off the bench. And you're less likely to win games with a rookie point guard who had 1 year as a combo guard in college and really is not a guy who's dissecting the other team's defense. He's really instinctive. DeAnthony Melton is a super instinctive player. But he's also not really a thinker out there on the court, pre-planning how and getting people in position and all that. He's just a player. So that's one. But the main thing is players that are good voices in the locker room for the other players to actually continue to listen to them. You've got to actually be on the court. You have to actually be in the games. You have to be in the trenches with these guys, day in and day out, experiencing these losses and wins while in between the lines and not at the end of the bench and being a cheerleader. There's only so much Jared Dudley, Tyson Chandler when he wasn't playing as much. Jamal Crawford is kind of like in the Tyson Chandler role. And it's, you can't play Jamal any more than you currently are, but certainly they're trying to get him to be that kind of influence. And it's got better than zero effect on the guys, and that's necessary. You've got to have a veteran in the lineup. Kelly Oubre is okay. How Kelly Oubre is the what oldest player in the regular rotation? As far as, is he the oldest? Is he second oldest, third oldest?
Is that counting TJ Warren?
Yes.
Third.
Well, he
fourth.
was third.
Because you have Jamal Crawford, you have Troy Daniels, who's older, you have TJ Warren, who is older, so that would put him fourth, right?
Right. And then they got Tyler Johnson, who's now finally fifth. Right. But the thing is, TJ Warren's not playing right now, and he's never actually been a voice for the team. He's never been the guy that the team is going to count on. And certainly as far as leadership, TJ leads by example, not by words. Troy Daniels hasn't played enough to actually really be a major voice on the court until second half of the season. So, I mean, really, Kelly Oubre at 23 years old is like the fourth oldest right now in the Suns' regular rotation, and that is pretty bad.
What did he say? He had a quote along the lines of, "When I was in Washington, no one listened to me. Now I'm at a team where everyone listens to me."
Right.
I do think it's been noticeable, and this is something that we're going to talk about later on the pod, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. But now down the stretches in games is that Igor has Kelly guarding the best player on the opposing team instead of Mikal Bridges, and that's been a noticeable change.
Well, definitely they are taking turns, but yes, when Kelly Oubre's out there, he's got Kelly Oubre defending the other team's best player. Like at the end of Friday night's game against Houston, Mikal Bridges had been on James Harden a lot, but then in the closing minutes, it was Kelly Oubre on James Harden, and the same is true of a lot of the games. I think it's pretty great that you can choose between the two and have them trade off depending on who's in foul trouble and how the switches work and all that. We're really, so Kelly Oubre has been a major influence on this team, and not just in the stats.
Yeah, I love me some Kelly Oubre. We are going to talk later on the show whether or not the Suns can keep both Oubre as well as Bridges long term. We'll probably dive into a little bit of Josh Jackson and TJ Warren talk along with that, but we do want to thank a listener. So if you do feel like you get something out of this show, out of this podcast, and you want to support the podcast, we really do appreciate you. If you open up the show notes, if you're listening on the podcast version or on YouTube, if you look in the comment in the description below, there's a link that says support this podcast. You can click on that, and there is a monthly $1, $5, or $10 option. The $1 really does help. So if you want to buy us a cup of coffee, please feel free to do so with that. I do want to thank a listener, Paul Ippolito. Ippolito, Paul Ippolito. Thank you. We really do appreciate it for the support.
Yep. Thank you, Paul. That's great.
And if you want to do the $10 option, I personally will send you some Sun swag. I have some to send out this week. I also do want to thank a listener who left us a review, Ed Hindle on Twitter. He said, "Tim, I've been a big fan of the Suns solar panel from the beginning. And thank you for all the hard work you do producing the podcast." Thank you, Ed. I appreciate that constructive criticism.
Yes, we really appreciate the reviews. Definitely, for sure. Yeah, no, definitely. Did you read the whole review or just part of the review?
I might have left out the middle part where he said I was a curmudgeon about how with you and Espo. I do want to say that I don't ever actually get annoyed with you, Dave, or Greg on the show. I think there's probably been one time in 2 years when I've been annoyed with you guys.
No, definitely. And the same is true of me. We're all good friends, and good friends are allowed to look annoyed at each other and to snipe back at each other on things that we don't like the other saying. But definitely, we're not actually annoyed at each other at any point.
Now I've been annoyed with the Suns losing. That's that
I don't know why, Tim.
And I'll try and be, because I had a couple of people recently tell me that I've become a bit negative on the podcast, so I will do a better job of trying to be a cheerleader for this team. Also, now the Suns are playing pretty well, so that does help the cause with that one. All right, so since we last recorded, and I believe that I got these games right, but Dave will correct me if I am wrong. Since we last recorded, the Suns have beaten the Bucks, the Knicks, and Golden State. They fell to the Jazz, which they were actually pretty competitive through the first half. They fell to the Blazers.
First three quarters, even. They had the lead with 5 seconds left in the third.
Yep. And they barely lost to the Rockets. The Rockets game was really good. It felt disappointing when they lost, although truth be told, at this point in the season,
Right.
the fact that they were that competitive when they didn't have Tyler Johnson, they started Devin Booker, they were competitive through the very end of the game, and really the only reason why they lost the game at the very end was just because they were playing a team that was more experienced than they were.
Yeah, I mean, what the Rockets did on Friday night was basically turn to James Harden, and James Harden, well, turned to himself basically because he's the one who has the ball. Chris Paul was out for rest, and so James Harden was the primary ball handler, and he was having an excellent game. And he knows how to draw fouls. He knows how to get points.
Daniel House hit that three-pointer at the end of the game and then came up with the block on Josh Jackson.
Absolutely right, but they got that far even just riding James Harden. It was Harden, I believe, who had the assist to House for that long three. But you know what? When a guy like Daniel House hits a 28-foot three-pointer at the end of the shot clock to create the difference in the game, that's the shot the Suns wanted. They didn't want James Harden to get to the line one more time.
Right. You forced the offense to take the shot you wanted them to take, and they made it.
Right.
And then you came up with a steal,
Then
and you got blocked. So, at the end of the day, that was like, it was what it was. You can't be mad at the team for that. And they also didn't have that many options. And it showed that when you're missing Tyler Johnson, when you're missing TJ Warren, that the Suns are not that deep of a team.
Yeah. So unfortunately for Josh Jackson, man, he is the key to that guy has more no, okay plays than anyone I've seen. And he's had more yes. Oh my God, no, that I can't believe that happened plays. Josh Jackson, he unbelievably got that steal that could have tied up the game or brought the Suns within one, I think, if he had made the layup. He slowed down to do a windmill dunk and got himself blocked by Daniel House.
I thought he was slowing down to take a look at where James Harden was, and he didn't see Daniel House.
He might have, but he just shouldn't have slowed down, period. You've got to go full speed if you're on a fast break. I think he really thought he was kind of alone. Yeah. And he was going to do a fun dunk.
Yep. But great game nonetheless. A lot of fun this week. It's been crazy to see the Suns be so competitive, and I think a part of that was teams just not respecting the Suns at the very beginning. But I also think that this team is playing better. I thought it was interesting for Igor to come out and without Tyler Johnson start Devin Booker at point guard along with Troy Daniels in the backcourt. I thought that was an interesting way to start the game. I thought that Dragan Bender has actually, even though he hasn't been scoring much, I think his rebounding and his defense has been really noticeable and impactful in the games.
Yeah, I think in my opinion, most of Dragan Bender's improvement has been in his facial expression. He doesn't look that much more effective on the court, but he looks more serious instead of more, I'm still developing kind of face. And I think we're all responding to that, but the dude is still only getting a couple of rebounds and no points and maybe one shot in 12 to 15 minutes of play.
Okay, I'll rephrase that. I think that the Suns have looked better with him on the court when they have somebody else another big that can box out, that can rebound.
Sure.
Like you see the Suns play with size. Dragan Bender has not been that much better, but I was thinking, so the Suns have.
Well, he hasn't been bad. And then some guy was arguing that, I can't remember if it was on Twitter in the Brightside comments, but some guy was arguing that Dragan Bender has dramatically improved just because he's not a completely worse player in the NBA anymore. And I think that's great. But the same commenter complains about DeAndre Ayton constantly. So, it's all relative, right? I mean, if Bender Island has been destroyed like a hurricane hit it and there's one palm tree still standing, then that's Dragan Bender right there.
Lowered expectations. Obviously, the Suns did not
the lowest possible
his option this coming year, but given the fact that they are playing him a bit more, that there is some value to having him on the roster. Do you think there's any chance over the offseason they offer him something like 2 years, $6 million to stay, or are they just done with Dragan Bender?
You know what? He is still just 21 years old. I don't know what his personal attitude toward the Suns organization is. A lot of these players are ingrained in their heads that it's somebody else's fault. It's some other dude did it, the Saudi defense. And so if Dragan is stewing over the lack of development of his pro career and he's blaming the Phoenix Suns franchise, then no small offer is going to keep him. And the Suns should never make a big offer. So, but if he still has positive feelings towards the organization or the team, which I don't know, I just simply don't know because I never see him talking to anybody, then he might stay for a small contract. What do you think? Do you want him back? If it was 2 years, $6 million?
I mean, the Suns have so many questions this offseason, which I guess is kind of a good time to dive into it. So there's been a lot of chatter on Suns Twitter whether or not the Suns can and should keep both Oubre as well as Bridges long term. Does Oubre hinder Mikal Bridges' development moving forward? But not only that, the Suns have some definite restrictions as far as their cap space goes this coming offseason. And so just with the cap room, the amount of money on the books with the cap holds that they have is $115 million. The amount of spending that they've done by releasing those cap holds, $88 million. Regardless of how you dice this up, the Suns don't have a ton of money this coming offseason to where they can keep everybody. If you want them to keep Sean Holmes, Kelly Oubre, they can't do it.
Yeah, thank you, Tim, for starting that out. My calculations that I just keep and I just did verify them on a couple of different sites, so I'm fairly sure they're accurate. Suns have about $15 million in cap space available while including Kelly Oubre's cap hold. If they released Ray Spalding, let me just make sure my numbers are right. No, sorry. That's if they release guys like Ray Spalding and no, that's it. So yeah, they have about $15 million.
Kelly Oubre's cap hold is fairly small, isn't it?
$9.63 million.
You know, so Josh Jackson, if you look at the amount of salary he has on the books coming up, he's going to be close to a $9-10 million player here pretty soon. The Suns are going to have some real questions with him.
Yes. Yeah, you know, it's really interesting that he sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm trying to type something, a name that I keep messing up and Siri is not fixing for me. I don't like Siri very much sometimes. Okay, sorry about that. So Kelly Oubre with his $9.63 million cap hold, he will probably be entertaining offers in the $15 million range. So what'll likely happen, obviously, is the Suns will just keep that cap hold unless he signs with another team and sticks with their $15 million on the open market. Now the question is, what are they going to spend the $15 million on? Do you want to spend it on a power forward? Do you want to spend it on a point guard? Or do you want to just get a couple of just mini rotation players that are mid-career?
Okay, well, let me ask you another question so I can make sure that I'm understanding this properly. If the Suns keep the cap hold with Kelly Oubre, but that's assuming that Kelly Oubre signs for the $9 million. Like if they were to give Kelly Oubre $15 million, how much? I don't think that they have any cap space. I think $15 million is their cap space.
Oh yeah. So what you would do is you would actually keep him as that $9.63 million, and then just sign him last out of all your free agent spending.
Right.
So
and then over the cap.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So is Robert Sarver going to do that?
Well, he's done it before.
Would he do it for this team?
Sure. Sarver has never had a problem spending a little bit of money. He's had a problem spending a lot of bit of money on a total team, and he's had a problem keeping with that year over year. Like we go back to the Kurt Thomas trade and all that. But he's never had a problem going for it in a summer spending spree for sure. I think there's a really, really tiny chance that Robert Sarver won't want to line up the contract so he can go a little bit over the cap. The thing is, he just doesn't like going over the luxury tax.
Does Kelly Oubre long-term hinder the development of Mikal Bridges?
No, not at all. And I just can't believe this is even. Look, the Suns' best, and I'm not yelling at you, Tim. There's a lot of sentiment on Twitter and among Suns fans that one hinders the other. These guys are great together in a lineup. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but the Suns' closing lineup over the past few weeks includes both Oubre and Bridges out there together, locking up the other team's best wing defenders. The only problem between the two of them is that neither is a power forward, but you know what? They shouldn't have to be. So no, they don't hold each other back. They can both play 30, 32 minutes, and you're better off because they'll both stay fresh. I think any team would want to have the two of them on the team. That's like saying the Warriors shouldn't have a prime Andre Iguodala coming off the bench when they had already Klay Thompson in their starting lineup. It's nonsensical. Of course the Warriors wanted both. The Warriors just said, yeah, let's have both. And that's what I'm talking about.
But if the Suns sign a starting caliber power forward with their cap room.
Well, it's all maneuverable cap room. I mean, Tyler Johnson's only on there for another year, and he's not going to be making $19 million.
Right, but I mean, if their major free agent acquisition this offseason was a power forward instead of a point guard, you would assume that they got themselves a quality power forward, in theory, somebody that would be commanding 30 minutes himself. Right now, Kelly Oubre and Mikal Bridges are able to get that amount of minutes between them because there's really nobody at power forward. You have Dragan Bender, you're playing like 12 minutes a game, but that's pretty much it.
See, that's the thing, man. You guys are just assuming all these things that are not true. Again, let me go back to the Warriors. Do we think that Andre Iguodala played in his prime for the Warriors, which was his last couple of years with the Warriors? Did he play too few minutes? No, they figured out how to get him out there for 25, 30 minutes. There's mixing and matching of lineups. No player plays 48 minutes. So absolutely you can have both these guys out there for 30 plus minutes, attacking the other team on both ends.
Can you have both those guys out there getting 30 plus minutes while keeping Josh Jackson and TJ Warren on your roster?
Well, that's my assumption. My assumption is that you're no longer trying to find room for Josh Jackson and TJ Warren. I'm sorry about TJ. I know he's a nice scorer off the bench. Some team is going to need him. I'd rather have Tyler Johnson than TJ Warren personally. I'd rather have anybody but Josh Jackson.
So I'd counter that. Let me get your thoughts on it. It's incredibly evident when you watch the Suns team how shallow they are coming off the bench. It seems like if they're able to keep a TJ Warren and he is okay with coming off the bench, that could actually be a pretty nice thing for the Suns.
Yeah, definitely. I think, but I don't think TJ is going to want to come off the bench. And but at $11 million, he's certainly the right expense for one of your top 2 or 3 bench players coming off. The problem is that he's never played well with Devin Booker. They've always been a net negative because neither really plays any defense. I'd rather have anybody else out there next to Devin Booker because you're building this team around Booker. You're building this team around DeAndre Ayton, and you're building this team around hopefully Zion Williamson. But even in the absence of that, then you're definitely going out there and making sure that the guys around Devin Booker complement Devin Booker. So no, I don't really think the Suns are getting their best possible value by playing TJ Warren 25, 30 minutes in any role.
And on that note, we have a guest coming up on the show.
Yeah, we have a guest coming on. He'll be coming on in a few minutes. His name is Jim Kokoskov. For those who are longtime Bright Side of the Suns fans, then they're going to be excited to know that Jim Kokoskov is going to be on the show. He used to do the Bright Side of the Sun podcast a couple of years ago on a weekly basis with me as his co-host. And everyone knows how good Jim is at his opinions, and how good he is at expressing those opinions, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. So let's see how he's feeling about the Suns these days.